All right, what's going on, everybody? Drew from Future Strategy Gaming. Thank you so much for coming and check out another one of my reaction videos. Today, we're going to be looking at Final Fantasy XIV, how it has attained the top spot amongst MMOs. This is content from Bellular. As I've explained in other Bellular videos, Bellular is a WoW content creator who is now dipping his toes into Final Fantasy. So he has a unique perspective, much like I do, having played both games. And he will give an honest take, which is what I appreciate about his content. You've seen in my other videos, he has a co-host, Matt, who I really like because A, he's funny. I really like some of his takes. And B, I find it's kind of nice that Bellular kind of has this Sherpa to kind of speed him along and kind of hold his hand through the Final Fantasy experience. So without further ado, we're just going to get straight into it. Let's see what happens. Propelled 14 to the top of the pile.
You do have your Shadowbringers thoughts.
Yes, I've actually gone into a decent amount of them over stuff, but I will try to rocket through them. 5.3 is, I think, like I said earlier, it is my second favorite game of all time.
We need to play it.
It is absolutely incredible in every capacity. The writing, the way it treats you as a player as you go through the actual single player story is absolutely insane. The fact that it's called back on 7 years of MMO gameplay and storyline, all to be this one coherent, cohesive journey that its characters follow you the whole way. Every line of dialogue from a character I know matters.
Yes.
Everything that, like, the sheer beauty of how they've handled villains. Like villains, there's stuff that is important to like villains in like the very start of the game that slowly get unraveled as you go through, even including like there's stuff in Shadowbringers you're learning that makes you rethink interactions you had in 2.0.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
and
completely
old reactions.
next level.
Is it kind of like how, we spend a bunch of time with, I like to say Talia,
Yeah.
like a little bit in BFA.
Not really.
But then we've thrown her in the bin. And in the next expansion, like she's technically there, but she doesn't do anything yet. But then in the next expansion, we put all that same amount of effort into, Pelagos and Clea.
Yeah.
But then in the next expansion,
WoW
they'll be in the bin,
characters.
and we'll have probably a new bunch of side characters.
Right.
Is maybe a part of what you're saying there, because like has FF had more characters stick around because of the Scion group and kind of like be with you between expansions, or like
not necessarily more, right? So there's a couple,
how
the group of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn is fairly large, and like there's a particularly your core party, it sits in and around 3, 4,
8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, in and around that
right?
of like constantly repeating characters that are super important and have loads to do with. They're
Main
like your
group.
main group of like allies and party.
Right.
And then there's a couple of them that aren't there. But it's just how they deal with like characters you meet and hang around with for an expansion that blows everything. Like, how do I put this? I pretty sure. So in World of Warcraft, I really don't know anything about Bolvar outside of being told his history.
Sure.
Has a problem. I've had
Sure.
time
We
with him
don't spend a lot of time with him.
We don't really talk about him.
There is there's a character who serves almost no purpose in the story outside of being a side character who mostly interacts with a different main character and sometimes with you, that is introduced in Shadowbringers, and literally just some of what they say and how many times you speak to them with this other character. I care more about this character, who is just someone new for Shadowbringers, than I care about most characters in World of Warcraft at the minute.
Lena.
People probably can't on, but I'm talking about Lena.
Yep.
The
like my fucking
Is a lot of
favorite
this
character because she's not part of the story.
More about the time you spend with these characters, how your conversations are framed as dialogue, so they're more they feel more two-way when you're actually having conversations.
Yes and no.
And then the game having a slower pace with its narrative content. Is that like how that happens?
So there's a little bit of that, but this character,
See what Matt
I'm
says.
thinking about literally just actual relationships between
Right.
that character and others.
Right.
Yeah.
So this person is a pseudo kind of daughtery person to someone else,
Right.
and it's literally
the
just the
XR.
trials and tribulations that these people are facing overall, and like they just talk about that sometimes, and it's kind of like here's a little bit of a break in actually doing, like, this is shit's going down, you have to fight this big thing, it's going to wreck this town, you have to fight it.
The
And it's like,
Crustarium
oh, okay,
and Lake Town
you're done. Go back, and character just speaks
or Lakeland.
because they pace things out
Right.
by having loads of just moments of characters talking. It's completely nuts. And then there's so many other characters that are there that
Okay.
like you can.
But I guess it's more like
Yeah.
TLDR. Character stuff is a big win.
It is
It's a big win because Final wants to tell a story, but wants to keep the characters relevant through their own personal development. And these characters have had their longevity because their stories are ever evolving. The problem is if you look at WoW on an individualistic level, let's go all the way back to Cataclysm, for instance. We completely destroy the world. We completely change how everything looks. Deathwing comes out, and you defeat this guy, and you've got some side characters who are a part of that expansion, and you don't talk to them for a couple expansions after that. Then you go to Mists of Pandaria. Wrathion stands out. Wrathion is one of the bigger characters within Mists of Pandaria as far as a lore perspective goes, being the son of Deathwing, kind of having to go through his repentance, if you will, and atonement for being the son. And then after Mop, he disappears. You don't talk to Wrathion again for WoD, Legion. I mean, like, there's no impactful conversations with Wrathion again until BFA. And that's the major difference, is that Final, on an expansion by expansion basis, keeps these characters relevant because they're a part of the story. And that also could partially be a byproduct of having two split factions within WoW, where you have the Alliance and the Horde, but also at the same time, it's through their storytelling. They don't want to tell some of these stories. It's if they don't like a character anymore, they're not part of the major thing. They'll just kill the character, or they'll just stop talking about the character. Whereas in Final, these major moments continue to build even higher because you've seen the character arc of these side characters that aren't even you. And I think that's a difference in style, and that's why it is as successful as it is within Final. Whereas in WoW, it just feels like once you're done with that expansion, most of these characters, don't really matter anymore outside of, I'll call them the big group, your Thralls and your Jaina's. Most of these characters don't matter, and it's really unfortunate because I would love to see a lot of the development for some of these individual characters within WoW to be a little bit more fleshed out like Final. But again, we're comparing apples to oranges because they are two different games, but the narrative is way different between the two.
absolutely incredible. It is literally some of the best I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Shit.
I mean, it's the kind of case
That's
where
high
you can
praise.
do this for a lot of
To get there.
franchises, but there's like a couple of lines you could speak that could probably bring, under the right circumstances, say a line and it feels like you've just kicked FF players in the gut.
Right.
If I say something like
Some stuff.
a smile better suits a hero, like people will know what I'm talking about. People will remember everything they've been through with a specific character and go, "Fucking hell."
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it's just,
so
that's possible. Like,
basically here, what I'm beginning to understand is
Yep.
the raid and like the instance content is all like pretty excellent.
yes,
Yeah.
So excellent enough that it can stand toe to toe, maybe not beat, but at least toe to toe with Warcraft.
Correct. Toe to toe.
Sort of around there.
Different,
Sort of
different,
but
and they have their own niches.
story, characters, event, all that. Just clean. This is the best in an MMO right now, and really
Yes.
the best in gaming in general.
generally. Yep.
That's part of the franchise, though.
The classes are fun. Stuff looks good, feels good.
It's good balance in the
Overall,
classes.
a real big winner.
Good aesthetics.
You've mentioned here that you're in the catch-up part of gearing, and it is fun. You feel like there is
Right.
so much to do, more you can do on a daily basis.
Totally.
Massive
Totally.
more than I can do.
Crafting, I mean, I actually couldn't really have a conversation about crafting because I
No.
don't
It's
understand the
just,
mechanics
it's
of
just
it.
so
yet,
crazy.
But
Yeah.
it seems like that's super in depth.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's another North Star you can go down. You can go down this massive rabbit hole of becoming a great crafter, leveling that job up to 80,
Right.
learning how to play that crafter, and then doing specific quest lines for that to earn a specific weapon and whatnot.
Does it cut off maybe hours of discussion by me saying that I think the success in this game is rooted in it feeling like your story, your character story in this world? Whereas in World of Warcraft, it often feels like you are witnessing Blizzard's story. Is that
That is definitely for the story side of it. Yes, I also think that
Yeah.
there's a lot of focus on FF as a story focused thing.
That's the
I also want to
franchise,
get
though.
across that I actually think I disagree now after playing some of the raids that WoW and it are on par
okay?
or as good as each other.
Wow.
Because I have been, some of this might be due to the fact I've been playing World of Warcraft for so long.
Sure.
Like a lot of the
Some
mechanical stuff comes naturally
jadedness.
to me, or that like bosses, there's not really, you know, maybe I am at the skill level I should be playing Mythic, but the time commitment is annoying.
I think you
But-
made everyone cry in chat.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, with that line.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I did, and there's that's
Almost
actually
teared
another
up.
thing. That line, much later in the game, you can say that line to someone else in game.
Spoilers, bro.
Ah, that's smart.
That is like that is actually like getting kicked in the nuts. Like it's
Spoilers.
like you're passing on this incredibly meaningful.
It's my
statement.
fault, but come on.
In terms of mechanics, I actually think some of it is subjective.
Mm.
You will just enjoy things better if you like World of Warcraft more. If you like
Sure,
that kind of
absolutely.
gameplay, if you like the tab targeting, interrupting a load of stuff, if you
Yeah.
like that more, or if you like the raid mechanics of all of that stuff more. But generally speaking, I think I'm enjoying FF14 a lot more mechanically, both as my job and of most jobs I've played
Mm-hmm.
versus anything in World of Warcraft, and the same
Wow.
for raid fights, where I enjoy the mechanics of FF14 a lot more.
You know, that's actually not.
Yes and no. I think the problem is when class redesign happens within Final, it only happens if something drastic needs to happen. Whereas they'll put in new abilities that will change the rotation for the better on an expansion by expansion basis. Whereas in WoW, it feels like this stuff's working, we'll add some stuff, hopefully it doesn't break it, and there's really no major development within that. As far as comparing the two raid fights, having been able to do some of both, you know, both of them recycle abilities from past bosses, but Final does it in a way that I feel is better. And the reason I say that is because with WoW, you're like, oh, okay, it's just this mechanic that you did on this last boss. Cool. No big deal. And in Final, that happens as well, where it's like, you know, you have these lines, you have your circle AoEs, those are the same, but the fight design is so much different within Final, whereas WoW, it just feels like, hey, we're going to make this one boss, and we're going to pull an ability from this boss from 4 tiers ago, an ability from that boss, and figure out how they interact with each other. So apples to oranges, I've enjoyed a lot of my raiding time within WoW, and I've also enjoyed Final Fantasy, and there are niches to both that I like, and there are niches to both that I dislike. So saying one is better than the other, I think some, on an individual basis, some fights are better than other. Ultimate Alexander is exceptionally better than Mythic Sire. I've watched the videos on both of them. It's more exciting to watch the Alexander fight, but those are taking just 2 fights out of context by themselves and not the overall experience.
What I expected. So that is interesting. It's that weird thing where like, yeah. I mean, it's impossible for me to say
Yeah,
because
he doesn't
I'm
know.
a level 19 archer.
He still
So
hasn't
I've
leveled.
Not seen any of it
This video is like 4
but
days
it's
later
interesting
from
that you
his
would say
other
that.
ones.
actually.
After doing Eden, especially E7N, because I've done Eden's one. I've done 1 through 8 on normal, and E7N. I was sweating. I died once because I stopped paying attention for a
Yeah.
fraction of a second.
Yep.
It was just the mechanics were all over the top of me, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It's just you have to keep track of where things are moving.
Yep.
And not like loads of things, but it's literally just okay. You have to keep up your gameplay, which is taxing enough because your APM is probably somewhere in like the
40s.
35 to 45 range.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
something like that for actual button presses. That's not including movement, of course.
Yeah.
And it's just things are moving, and because they're like scripted, you kind of can learn them. And
Sure,
they become this,
that's
like, dance that you're
the
effortlessly
biggest
doing,
difference.
and that's when you parse really high.
That's another big difference between the two rating scenes. The finals, in my opinion, finals mindset is this fight is going to go exactly like this. You need to execute your job, and you need to make sure your rotation's on point to meet these check marks in order to beat this boss. Whereas WoW has, unfortunately, there are some fights that are completely RNG based. You know, and there's a fight in Castle Nathria where if the wrong person got the wrong boss ability targeted against them, you would just wipe. You would just say, we'll just start over. And that's not fun at all.
but it's like it's once when you're learning things and you're kind of going, okay, well, I need to make sure, because I play Bard, I need to make sure I don't drop my dots here. So
Right.
like the amount of times I've
Because it's
recast my
scripted.
dots with Ironjaw early, because I just know, oh, this is going to cast something, I'm going to let them drop. And then I'm going, okay, well, that's coming this way. There's that. This is E7 end I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So I'm Dark Ether. There's light. That's going through that portal, and it'll come out that portal, and then the dark will go through that and come out that.
Right.
So I have to go. So I have to stand. I'll stand
In a very
on this
particular
lane
spot.
beside blue, and then move to red.
Right.
And that's. I mean, obviously that means nothing to you. But
Not
it's,
at all.
But it's a case of me having to keep track of that while also playing everything.
I guess.
Sure.
It feels so much more engaging to me than WoW does right now.
Do you
A
like
lot of
dance
that-
fights?
Right now.
I think most of them are remarkably boring, in a sense.
Define
for
dance
example,
fights.
The Council of Blood. That is.
That's
really
not a
good,
dance
that's
fight.
just follow direction, like.
Yeah.
I've kind of. I mean, I enjoy that fight for.
I do
think
like
it
that
is
fight
because
as
I can
well.
turbo into doing
But it's-
DPS.
Yeah, see, I
it's
don't mind
not
the
a
fight, but
dance
it's that,
fight in my opinion.
Dance intermission, where the gameplay is move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
no, I
not.
mean dance, as in like say, from what I understand, like Hell Yeah and like dance fights.
Yeah.
I generally like those.
So I
Yeah.
generally I find it sort of satisfying the big group
Yeah.
movement, but I know
Exactly,
those are, like, a
I
little bit
agree with that.
controversial as well.
Yeah.
I
So
like
I'm just
the-
trying to like
I like
I'm
that.
saying that to like get
Try
an
and get-
angle
yes.
on, is FF more of a design philosophy where you'll have mechanics that happen in a way where they will they'll overlap and you will get like
Yes.
emergent gameplay scenarios.
Yes.
Via that?
Almost never.
Or is so right.
Oh,
it's
please.
far more of a pre-scripted, be in the right place at the right time, learn the fight, that kind.
Yes.
So I think that's
I mean,
sort of design.
yes
that
and
is
no.
less in-
If you've watched Preach's content at all recently, he had a Final Fantasy content creator on his stream to talk about Titania. I believe she was on Extreme in that situation where, those do overlap. For him to say that they don't overlap, that just means he hasn't experienced yet. They do overlap, and it's not, oh, no matter what, I'm going to go stand on this one position. There is some reactions based on that, so that's
interesting for super high-end
off
players,
a little bit.
but has a successful mastery loop for most other players where they can really feel like they learn the fight. They're no longer stressed by it. They can make their class shine. That's
Sure.
why it works.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's just design philosophy, really.
Yeah.
And the
That
mastery
happens
of
for
it,
anyone.
I've still not done any Savage, and I think normal stuff is
That's
like,
why.
overwhelming first couple times, and then I can get into the swing of it.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to Savage, because as far as I can tell, it is actually like they get really, really on top of you.
Yes.
I don't know how many emergent things happen, because I've always heard they're largely scripted. Like normal stuff is scripted in a direction where it's
Yeah.
like, stand here, move here, all will keep the BPS.
And WoW fights are
So
scripted too.
actually,
based on
Validus
timers.
Here just said FF14 raids are like playing DDR to
Yeah.
do mechanics while playing Guitar Hero to execute your rotation.
That's
Yeah.
a very good way to put it. Yeah.
Smart.
It is
You're-
extremely
yeah,
good.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, it's the fact that both of these things are going against each other that feels so good,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't it's just playing jobs. You're constantly thinking
Yes.
a lot of time. Bard doesn't do an awful lot of thinking. It's more
yeah,
about
it's
more about
rotations.
focusing and keeping
Yeah.
things up.
Yeah.
But it's like playing Samurai or playing Red Mage, for example, because I did my Red,
Red Mage is nuts.
It's only like 52 or something, but I go do like Alliance raid on my daily roulette sometimes, which is like I go do Crystal Tower raids, which is a couple of bosses per raid from A Realm Reborn, and I will just drop stuff all the time, because I'll just be like, Jesus Christ, I can't keep all of this in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
There's
just
a
very
lot.
just
I mean, Red
kind of
Mage,
involved.
yeah,
Kind of
has a
involved
lot
as well
going
as
on. It's
doing
not
all
for the
this stuff
faint of
in
heart.
hiding places.
Good Red Mages
don't-
are hard to come by.
Like, I don't know how to explain it in a way that makes sense, other than if you feel it, if you play it, you'll probably feel it. I don't know if you'll agree with me after playing it,
I'll just need to play it basically.
but it's the kind of same way, you play a good action game
Yeah.
and you're just in flow.
Right.
That's what FF14 invokes in me.
Absolutely.
Every time I do fight.
Yeah,
It's
especially with how we'll stop this. Especially with how rotations work, where a lot of them have the 3 action combo system kind of in place. So speaking from Monk's perspective in this one, because that's one of my 80s. It's do these in sequence, and you will deal more damage than someone who does not do them in sequence. So keeping that mindset up, as well as weaving your OG CDs into it, and keeping up all that movement, really allow for yes, stress, but also some fluidity. When you really can dial in your rotation for a lot of these DPS classes, it really feels good and fluid as you go through these fights. So there's some points there that I definitely think he did well. All right, cool. Well, appreciate you guys stopping by and taking a look. It seems like Bellular just hasn't had the time quite yet to experience any more. Matt, it feels like he's definitely really going down that rabbit hole and wants to experience some more of the top end, which is great because it'll give him a more unique um, perception on the game, in comparison to WoW. Having had multiple cutting edge kills and high end mythic kills, I feel like I definitely can understand a lot of the similarities and the comparisons between the two in this situation. So all right, great. Well, thank you so much for watching this video with me. Description down below if you want to go watch this video without me talking over it first. And as always, if you like the video, hit that like button. If you want to subscribe and see more of these videos and more of my content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that bell if you want to get that notification. And open discussions are great. That's what I strive for. So make sure that you're dropping any comments for any points that you want to talk about. I'm Drew from Future Strategy Gaming. Thanks for stopping by. Peace.